chances that I missed. Some I held, some slipped away. One street over where my memories exist. I wonder what would change, I really couldn't say. In this life there's nothing certain, except the curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing, I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn. Because one street over there's a life I could have known that would have kept me from the one I had today. Except the curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing, I just forget the lessons that I couldn't learn. Because one street over there's a life I could have known that would have kept me from the one I had today. From my home, cracked and broken asphalt everywhere. I could have ended up just like that broken road, with a dead end in my path. Thank the Lord that I've got more than that. In this life there's nothing certain, except the curtain that rises to the stage. Silly games of second guessing, I won't forget the lessons that I don't deserve. Because one street over there's a life I could have known that would have kept me from the one I love today.
Good morning. Hello.
One street over there's a life I could have known.
You're listening to the world's best music, good news music, gospel music on WSGI AM 1100, Springfield, God's Informer.
This is One Street Over, and if you're joining me on my social media, things are just not working out just right this morning, but we've got it on WSGI, and you can definitely check it out on the WSGI page, again, 1100 WSGI, and I hope you'll join us there. But maybe I can get it going here on my page here in just a second. I don't know what's going on, but we'll share it we'll share it from the WSGI page. It looks like everything's working on the WSGI page this morning, but for some reason I cannot get it to come up on mine. Bill Jones is in with me this morning, and appreciate you being with me this morning, brother. I don't know what's happening with this. You know how sometimes technology works and sometimes it doesn't. But how are you doing, Bill?
I'm doing great. Got a little wet.
But,
I'm over here this morning.
Oh, I know it. As I was walking out the door, I had some problems with the rain. I mean, it came that deluge of rain just as I hit the doorway, of course. Yeah. And of course, we always love it when that happens. But I couldn't find an umbrella, couldn't find any of the things I needed to head out the door.
You might have 6 of them, you can't find them.
Yeah, I know. That's the frustrating thing. And so, and as I looked at it last night, I didn't think it was going to be such a problem. You had said it's going to rain all day. So are we going to have this rain all day long today?
Yeah, today and tomorrow.
Oh, my goodness. Well, see, we're supposed to have a baseball game tonight.
I've got a granddaughter going to fly to Italy today.
Oh, wow.
So they'd take her down to Atlanta. I saw on the news that a lot of flights are being canceled and delayed.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't know what that's going to involve with her.
But, I hope for safe travels and all of that this morning. I hope everything goes okay with that because, that's always a a fun time. But my husband's coming in here. What's going on? I'm not on the AM either. You're okay. Did you need to let you know because we're on social media on 1100 WSGI, but you're not getting me on the regular page. Well, go check the signal again and just see. But you're not hearing anything on 1100 WSGI. Okay, well, you might check it again and see if it's come up because according to ILU, we were on, but we were having just some technical problems with our account this morning, guys. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I'm able to get it working on the WSGI page, so I'm sharing that on my page. And my husband just popped in here and said that we were having signal issues too. Did you listen to it on the signal this morning? On the regular broadcast signal?
I didn't.
So we may be having some glitches this morning. I don't know. You popped in just a second ago, and we had the feed again on the regular page, the radio station page. WSGI seems to be just fine, but for some reason I can't get it to work on the page I usually post on with my Facebook. So I really don't know what's going on, but we'll try to reboot this and see what happens. But we've got Bill John. I don't want to really get to the punch with you on some of this stuff because we had talked about last week that we were going to do a little contest, and so I want to try to see if I can get everything up and running here before we put all that out. But we can always do what you and I do at a different time. But we want to try to get all this fixed. Sometimes when things happen with the weather, some things don't go quite as you're planning on, but I mean, I don't know what's going on this morning. We're having some little glitchy stuff that's happening, and hopefully, I don't know, maybe we get it fixed, Bill. But it's still
aggravating.
Yeah, it is. It is a little aggravating because everything seemed to be working okay, and then now it's just kind of blinking out on us, and I don't know what to do. So I don't know. If you're hearing us on 1100 WSGI, be sure and let us know so we can know that that's coming through. I know it looks like I'm playing on my phone. I am not. My computer. I had one of those weeks last week that I just everything I touched broke. It seemed like, and
I don't need to be near you.
You're afraid I'll get
Right.
get my little glitches on you. I tell you, it has been just technologically when I'm trying to do things with the kiddos at school. It's just been one of them days that, or one of those weeks that just things just weren't jihad. And so.
Well, I see us on WSGI.
Yeah, WSGI is there. WSGI is there. So we've got that. So that's good. And I'm going to try to just share that. I keep trying to share it to my page, and for some reason it's not going up. But we got some comments on here. So, and let me turn that down. But, and hopefully, Paul is on here, and he's just saying we got gremlins going on this morning. So we got gremlins messing with us. I don't know what's happening. But I'm hoping that we're going out on 1100 WSGI. So let me know, Mr. Mark Vivio, if you can. He said a while ago that it was not working. So if you're getting the signal on 1100 WSGI, if you're getting the terrestrial signal like the regular radio, be sure and let us know. Because we've got some things we want to cover. I talked to Danny Ashley for a little bit yesterday on just through email. I talked to him. We emailed each other. But he was saying that they've got the evening at Elmwood coming up. So, from a history perspective, we're going to be doing some more stuff with that. So that's going to be really cool that we're going to, have Danny coming in here next week. He is going to be on, I'm wanting to say, I think Wednesday. I've got him coming in Wednesday morning, 7:30. Okay. Yeah, because the evening at Elmwood is going to be on. The evening at Elmwood is going to be on the last Saturday, I think, in May, and so I
didn't know when it was.
Yeah, that's coming up. So that'll be good. And so we've got Danny is going to be coming up to do that. So that's on the history. And the reason why Bill is here. It's not, it just happened that he's here on a weather day when things are glitchy, but it's because he is here because we're doing our history show. We have decided to start doing a history show once a month where we have him come in, and he comes in and we talk about history on the second Monday. So, we're enjoying that, and we've done that just once so far, or twice.
Yeah.
So this is our second one. I just hate. I'm jumping around on social media trying to see if I can disconnect and reconnect and get something going here. But I think we finally were able to post the show onto my page from WSGI. So some things are working. I just hope that the signal's working, out there.
AM,
yeah, on the AM. But my husband said it was not. So if you see that it is, let me know, and we would appreciate that. So if you can flip over and see if you can pick it up on 1100 WSGI, we'll see if that's working. But I cannot get this to connect. You know what? I think I just figured out there was a button I forgot. Well, no, I can't get anything to connect on my social media page. But we were able to at least be able to share it. So that's good. Yeah, the clickers just aren't working for me. They're just not, the right buttons are not clicking today. But we do have it all set up with the social media page as far as WSGI. So that is good. That's working for us this morning. But if you're out on the roadways, remember the traffic reporter in me always likes to say, you've got to remember to get those headlights on. If you've got your windshield wipers on, headlights are supposed to be on. Of course, you want them this morning because it's kind of dreary and dark out there. But so you're going to want those on anyway. But anyway, so what's going on in your world, brother? We'll just go ahead and continue on here.
I got a lot of stuff. I just can't. I can narrow it down to what we want to talk about.
I hear you.
Last time we talked about roads and cars and
right,
all kinds of things around the county, and I wanted to add a few little things to that before we go on to something else. But,
sure.
The first Ford that came out, Henry Ford made was a Model T. You would think the Model A would be the first one, but the Model T was called a Tin Lizzie.
Okay.
A few people around here had them, and what I thought was unusual, it didn't have windshields.
Oh, you're
and I'm
kidding
thinking,
me.
On a day like today, what did they do?
I think you'd probably leave it in the garage, wouldn't you?
Yeah, right. They parked them in barns and garages.
Yeah.
But later, you have a windshield put on one as an accessory. It didn't come standard with them. Of course, it didn't have windshield wipers. So I was thinking this morning, boy, if it was a day like today and you had to go to work or wherever
I can't imagine.
car, they'd have to stop every so often and wipe the windshield off.
But they had the tops on them. Because did cars always have tops, or were they sometimes open?
No, the first ones didn't.
Okay, I didn't think so. They were, built kind of like a tractor or whatever. They were just
top speed was 8 miles per hour.
Oh my gosh! Can you imagine?
I think somebody got a speeding ticket for going over that.
How funny! How funny!
Anyway, I was just thinking about that this morning, and windshields became standard around 1915. And of course, car clubs I mentioned before, all over the place. There were car clubs promoting road development and road signs and all that kind of thing. And one of the tricks they used to use when they did have windshields to keep the water off, they would take carrots and rub on the windshield, and they'd use sliced onions and tobacco, and that would put a film on the windshield and make the water run off.
Oh, how wow.
We have Rain-X.
Yeah. That's cool.
They would do that, and I thought that was sort of neat that they were.
Yeah.
But something else I found out I didn't know, I got thinking about, wonder when they put lines in the road. And I found the first time they put a white line down the middle of the road to keep people from running into each other was in Michigan in 1911. And there was a milk truck going down the road spilling milk. And this man saw it and thought, we ought to paint a line. The milk was spilling down the road, making a white line. So it gave him an idea to paint the roads up where he was in Michigan white line in it, so cars wouldn't run into each other head on, as they met each other. And sort of interesting how that developed, and it came on down into change to yellow line. Now, how long ago do you think we started the yellow line standardization?
I just don't have
1950s.
Oh, really?
Isn't that something? Recent? It was that late, 1950s. And it came regulated, standardized in the 1970s, where they said, they would be so many feet apart between yellow line and space and that type of thing. But what's the most interesting thing, there was an organization in 1942 during World War II called Emergency MUTCD, which stood for Manual in Uniform Traffic Control Device. and they painted the lines black.
Okay.
And the reason for that, they thought maybe the Germans were going to come over and bomb us, so they would have people would turn their lights off at night so you couldn't be seen by a bomber. And so they paint the lines black.
Oh, that sounds terrifying.
And then that went on for a while, and they realized that's not a good idea because you can't see them at night after the war. So they stopped doing that, and they replaced them with the white lines. And then they came up with broken line, yellow, solid yellow, broken yellow, and what that means. And it's so surprising that it's my lifetime they did this, in the 50s and 70s, and I was just surprised that it wasn't older than that. But as you look, and I remember my grandmother's house out on Dareville Highway, I remember watching the cars. The pavement wasn't smooth then, back in the 50s, and you could hear the cars coming way, way off. And you think, well, here comes a car, and I'd run, a little boy, run out there and watch the cars go by. But it was a rough road. It was not smooth. I mean, smooth sort of, but it still was chunky, not holes, but just made a noise. And it wasn't but just one line down the middle of the road then. And I thought, well, I remember that, and I don't know why, but those things, amazing, happened in my lifetime.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. When I sit and talk to my students at school about the things that I've seen, it blows their mind. It
does. It's so, mind. It surprises you, the things you don't think about as being historical. Yeah. To them, it is. Right. And it's important to know all this stuff, really, I think. I didn't think so when I was young, that age, but I think so now. Important to know where we came from, where it came from.
Exactly. And, we've got this. Bill's planning on doing this little contest. He was going to give you a couple of questions.
We'll do it today. We'll wait a little later.
Just see, because I still don't have a direct connection through. Now, we're up on my social media, so we do have that. But I'm very curious to whether or not the signal's working. And so I'm trying to, and I haven't had anybody message me and confirm that it is working. We need to make sure we've got as many people on here as possible to make sure that, that we can, do the little contest. Because what he's going to do, he's going to give you a question, and you'll have 10 minutes to give the answer, and you can win $10. So, but anyway.
It's my $10. I'm on.
Yeah, that's just it. It's not the radio station doing it. This is Bill just wanting to be good and kind, and he's just like, I think this will be a little bit of fun. And so, that's just him doing his thing. So I think that's really cool. But I think it's a neat idea, and I'm curious about the questions myself. And I don't want you to get,
You don't know
them. I'm sure I won't, because they're Robertson County connected, correct?
Yeah. Well, Springfield, actually.
Well, Springfield. Okay.
Yeah, today it might.
And I'm not from around here.
Be something else.
I'm not from around here. I'm from the Mayfield area. So.
Next thing I wanted to talk about is 6 jobs from the 1950s that barely exist today. Can you think of one?
6 jobs. Okay, say that again.
6 jobs that were very prevalent in the 1950s but barely exist today.
In the 1950s, barely.
Well, let me give you the first one. Telephone operator, switchboard operator.
Okay, telephone. I was thinking the guy gas station attendant.
That's one of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's my last one.
Okay. Gas station attendant was the first one, because I was thinking, okay.
Let's talk about that. Gas station attendants ran out. They checked your oil. They checked, wiped the windshield. They filled you up with gas. They checked the tire pressure, all that stuff. And I can remember it. I don't know if you ever.
Oh, yes.
Do you? Okay.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well,
absolutely.
I remember that. And I thought
I do
it was so
too.
neat. And what to me was neat when I was young is running across that wire. And it went ding dong,
Oh, yeah.
That. And then when we were kids, we would maybe be on our bicycle and we roll over it real quick and move on and make the gas station attendant irritated at us.
Oh, yes.
Going to ding dong.
They keep coming out. They'd have to keep coming out.
Forth. And I remember Mr. Gore had a filling station where KFC is now. And you could come out from Bats Boulevard or Memorial, and his station was right in the corner there, so people would run across. They would cut across his station to the Memorial from Bats Boulevard there, and he didn't like that.
Right.
He didn't want them, and there was a road there, but they would take the road they'd cut across on his station.
Yeah.
So and he had a ding dong, bell.
Yeah.
So it would ding dong. He'd run out there, and he, of course,
Somebody was just taking a
nobody's there,
shortcut.
just
Yeah.
get on a bicycle, or maybe somebody in a car just run across it. So what he did, he came up with a board, and it had rubber spikes. It looked like spikes, nails, and in a 2x4, and he put it all across his driveway there and by the gas pumps. So when people saw it, they didn't know they were rubber, and they'd go around the station then because he wasn't sure whether it was real or not.
Well, did it hurt his customers? I mean, did
No.
it cut down on his customers?
No, this was in the part where customers didn't pull in at. It was
Okay,
on the side
okay.
of the station where
Okay.
they would cut around his station instead of
Okay.
going down to the road. So Mr. Gore, he had two daughters. One was fairest of the fair, the oldest one I remember.
Uh-huh.
The youngest one worked at Farmers Bank for a long time, and both of them have died a few years ago. But I remember Mr. Gore, what he looked like, what he sounded like, because he
That's
fussed at me
interesting.
for riding my bicycle over the bell,
Oh, how fun.
which we thought it was fun to make the bell go off.
Well, sure. Absolutely. That's really
Anyway,
fun.
that's one of them, and the reason they stopped doing that because it was so expensive to hire somebody just to do that, so it just went away. Buzzy Poole's daddy he had a couple of different gas stations. One of them was going up Fifth Avenue Hill in Springfield, and another one was out South Main.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, he had a bell, I remember, and of course we aggravated him too. But anyway, that's one of them.
Right.
Another one, as I first mentioned, is telephone switchboard
Right.
operators.
Switchboard operator.
Back when we first got telephones in Springfield, it was the early 1900s. In fact, there were two companies that came in and offered telephone service, and it was very expensive to do. If you wanted to make a phone call to Nashville, usually people would go down to a drugstore like Hobson Wright was here, and they had a phone, and they would charge you so much money for a minute or 2 minutes or 3, so you could call somebody in Nashville or wherever you wanted to call. So not many people had phones, but the operators had to have physical operators sitting at a table with wires and plugging them in, to a thing, and they were above the Woodard Hall building. You know where the Woodard Hall building is, South
Yes.
Fifth Avenue
Yes.
and
Yes.
Main, and they were up there in a room. Then later, they moved them down Main Street, South Main. If you go past the square on the right, there was a little building there. It's right. I don't know what's there now. It used to be the hen house. I don't know if you remember that. But anyway, right past that first retail business there was a back door. And the operators moved into that location. My dad, and also the telegraph operator there too. My dad he had a bicycle, and he would deliver messages from the phone company or telegraph for 10 cents a message.
Oh, that's crazy.
And he would get on his bicycle and deliver them all and go there and do it. That was his side job when he was a kid, Anyway, there were, in the 1950s, 342,000 telephone operators that were public, but there was over 1 million private ones. Of course, businesses had a switchboard. Just
Right.
so you were in Nashville and you had a building with several offices in it, they would have a switchboard to connect to the different offices. So there was over 1 million of those around, just like one-person operation probably. Then they went to digital, and in the 60s and 70s, and it's automatic operations. The next job that we had in the 1950s that we hardly have now is milkmen.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember as a kid, milkman coming around, and you could hear he had a little metal basket, and you could hear the milk bottle clanging, and you knew he was on the front porch. He would set a milk bottle out on the porch or two, and then he would pick up your empties, and they would send you a bill. That's how we got our milk. And of course,
See, now, I never had that.
you didn't.
No,
Okay.
because, well, number one, when I was a kid, we had a dairy. I mean,
Yeah,
we had a
well,
dairy.
you wouldn't have that.
Yeah. So we'd get it right out of the tank, out of the milk house. And so, but now my husband, He grew up in Norway, Michigan, in Pollard's Dairy. You can still see the barns and the buildings from Pollard's Dairy still there, and they had that the milk delivery. But now they had it. I don't know if it was the entire time. I mean, I guess they probably had the glass bottles when he was young, but they had while he was young. They would deliver them in these plastic bags. They went to like a.
I never saw that. I just saw the glass
They
bottle.
had the plastic bags that they would deliver it in, and he'd have to tell you he remembers it.
Did
very,
they deliver
very well.
butter too?
I don't know.
There was butter delivered here.
Yeah.
And the butter, actually, I remember the butter was white, but you had a little cup of yellow stuff you mixed in with it to make it yellow. I don't know why.
I wonder why.
Well, it's something to do with World War II, where they had a shortage of something, and that I just remember it would come in a little cap. And of course, when we were boys, we were mischievous, and we would steal people's milk bottles, the empty ones, or shoot them with a BB gun or something.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember, so a funny thing, back then, there were no restaurants to go to. There was hardly any grocery stores. And so milk was mainly obtained from delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got away. So now we go to the stores. But the funny thing now with Kroger's and a lot of them, they have home delivery. So they will deliver your milk. So we've made a completely 180-degree turn on that, so 360, I would say. We did it and then stopped it, and now it's coming back.
Now we're coming back with it.
Yeah. So in the 1950s, way more than half of our milk we got was from delivery. And we had a pure milk company here in Springfield out on 22nd Avenue. And, where Woodland Street School was right down from it, there's a rectangular block building, and that was the milk company where they processed and delivered milk out of. The milk trucks would come in there and fill up in the morning and deliver them. And then we had a place, it's torn down there on South Main where it parts from Batts Boulevard to South Main. Over on the left, there's a little store there, apothecary or something there now.
Yeah.
Over on the left was a building that was another milk company Mr. Hudson ran. And I remember he had a counter there. You could go up to it and order ice cream. So after school, we'd ride our bicycles down to there and get a ice cream cone for a nickel, type thing. And
that's cool.
A lot of people remember that.
Well, was it kind of like we see the Andy Griffith show, and we see him going up to the ice cream counter at Obie, and was it kind of like that?
Yeah, and Harris Drug was on the corner where the tea room was.
Right.
But Harris Drugs was there, and they had a counter, and you go and get ice cream. And when I was a boy, they had a promotion where they were going to fly a plane over the football field in Springfield and drop these coupons to get ice cream cones at the farm Harris Drugs there. Well, I lived maybe 200 yards from the football field, 300 maybe. And that plane came over one day, and it was a little windy, and it blew them all into my backyard, instead of the football field.
Oh, how
So
funny.
I had a lot of coupons. So they had to honor it. I had all my friends. We would, after school, we'd go up there and get free ice cream until all those coupons ran out. That was a waste of money for them, but they had to do it because that's what they did.
That's funny.
Yeah, another one, a job that
you were
used
popular.
To be, yeah, right. Well, for a few days. Anyway, another job was elevator operators.
Oh yeah.
And we had the first public elevator in Springfield was in the Bell Building, and there was a man, I think a woman at one time was doing it also, but I've got at home the name of the man, but I don't remember what it is that operated the elevator. He had one of these doors, looked like little metal cross pieces that folded up and back when you close the door, and he would operate the elevator. And of course, all of us wanted to ride the elevator. I mean, that was the most exciting thing in town then. Can you imagine that? Most exciting thing. And then when the elevator operator knew what you was doing, you're riding up and down, he wouldn't let you on anymore. He said, you have to use the stairs.
Oh, how funny. He's like, no more. That's enough,
say,
boys.
Oh, I've got to go to the dentist. So there was doctors in the Bell Building and dentists and apartments and insurance people and lawyers and everything there. So as long as you made up something like I've got to go Dr. Swan, then he would let you ride the elevator. But anyway, that was the first one in town. And of course, there were over 90,000 elevator operators in the U.S. in the 1950s. And now there's still some of the buildings in New York and
Fancy
some of
ones,
the old historic buildings. They keep the operators just for historic purposes. They'll have somebody with a little cap on, uniform,
Sure.
that runs the elevator.
The nostalgia of it.
Nostalgia.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
How interesting.
Now, also, did you take typing in high school?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they don't teach it much anymore.
Keyboard. I mean, it's keyboarding, and they
Yeah.
teach it very young.
Yeah.
Very young.
Of
And
course, you can get it on your own now. There's programs you can get on.
well, there's like
teach it.
little games. And when I first started teaching, as we were building my curriculum, they had me teaching like a computer applications class, and that was, how fast can you do your, keyboard? And there are games like little races and all that kind of thing that you can do to learn keyboarding. And some of them never really learn it. You can just kind of see them kind of hunting and pecking. But Miss Hearn was my typing teacher.
I think it's the best class I ever took.
Oh, yeah.
It's so valuable to me.
It's so funny you mentioned that, though, because Miss Hearn, she is one of my teachers I'll never forget because she died of an aneurysm while we were in school. And not in class, but we came back from a weekend, and Miss Hearn had passed away, and she'd had an aneurysm, and we'd never even heard of an aneurysm. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that was so unusual.
I've known some people. Like
Yeah, exactly. And I've since, heard of it, with other people. But
my typing teacher
that's
was
what killed my dad.
Mrs. Henry. We had one highway patrolman here, Bill Henry, and his wife, and she lived up in Indian Hills, a little short lady, and she taught typing class. My mother took typing, back when they changed from the old school that burned down to the new one. She took typing, and she was entered a contest and one of the fastest one in the state.
Oh, wow.
And my son and me inherited that. We were real quick with our hands, real good with it. So I was a very fast typer. And there was another guy in the class with me named Harvey Kraft. And Harvey lives in Nashville today. And he lived down on South Main. And he was real fast, too. So we were sort of competitive with each other. In fact, today we still talk about it, being
funny.
the fastest typers in the class. But anyway, in 1950, of course, typing was taught because women, the main job women would have in business was secretaries, and they had to know how to type. So typing class was very important for women back in the 1950s. And by 1950, secretarial work had become the most common occupation for women, with 1.7 million employees and stenographers, secretaries, according to the census back then. So you had to learn to type if you were going to have a job, a decent job as a woman.
Well, my mother was, when she married Dad, she was a secretary or working in the office at Pet Milk in Mayfield. And that was because she had, at the time, what they considered to be the top job you could have as a woman. She and had a good pay and all of that. Yeah. Now my Mark's mother could do the typing that they did for court, like the
stenographers.
Yeah, is it stenographer?
My daughter was a court. She taught court reporting at one time.
We actually have one of those machines that, and I have no idea why it was in my classroom, but it's, as I've been putting together things for the kids to see how communication has changed. I have one of those machines that I found just in the back in the closet whenever I was cleaning out my room. And so I've got a case with some of this old stuff in it. And I've got a stenographer's,
I see them on television a lot. They're talking into a muff or something instead of doing the typing. And I thought, wow, that's the easy way of doing it.
Right.
Because they have to go back and go through it again and
transcribe it and all that. Yeah. So they're probably just recording it and then they transcribe it later. So I don't know. I've not been in the courtroom, praise the Lord, in a long time. So
one thing
they haven't been there typing it all anymore.
There was a guy that came out back in the 90s, I think. He was doing videotaping of courts instead of the stenography thing. And I thought that will take over. It didn't. They still have stenographers, still have court reporters. And I thought, I wonder why that didn't go. You would think it would. It's still probably they probably still do it. They just do it a
Interesting.
different way.
We'll have to ask the judge that next time he's in if they
Yeah.
still do that. But well, very good. We're talking with Bill Jones. Like I said, we're still, according to my husband, we do not have an AM signal, and so I don't know what's going on with that. I've let Ilyu know. If you're watching the show, you're watching it through the social media posts that we have on WSGI, which I have shared to my page because I cannot get it to live feed originating from my page. So do you want to hold off on those questions and save them for next time since we're
Might
having
be, I was just thinking that
I
might
kind
be
of
the
think so
thing
since
to do.
our audience is rather limited today
Yeah.
because of the technical issues. So if you're out there with us, we appreciate you being diligent and finding us. But we're having some signal issues today, and we're having some technical issues inside the studio. So not really sure what's going on. That rain sometimes can mess with us, but
Yeah. Okay, the last one I've got is motion picture projectionist.
oh yeah,
I can remember, the guy up in a little window.
Yep.
When you're sitting in a movie, you could look up above you in the back little window, and you could see the guy moving around. He was the one that had to load the film on the camera, and it was a very active type job. It was very, you had to do a lot of work. And I have a friend today who has done that all the way through. Now it's all digital. He's an electronics guru. He's really good at it, and he does all this. What they have over in Rivergate, this I don't know what you call it, Max or something.
yeah, the
whatever.
iMac.
iMac, yeah, he
iMac.
does that. He's a troubleshooter. They send him
Okay.
all over the United States
Oh
to,
wow,
but it's all digital now. You don't load film. You don't have film. It's
sure.
all digital, and you don't have to do it. The projectionist doesn't exist anymore. It's just the technician starting and stopping stuff, and they have a union. A funny thing, he told me a story one time when he was young. He in the union, they had a union, and so the union would tell you where to go. So they told him to go to this place down on Broad Street, Lower Broad in Nashville, at this certain time, day. And so this is your job today. Well, he goes down there, and it's a peep show type thing, and he has to run the projection.
Oh my
He
goodness.
said, but he had to do it because the union said do it. So when they were showing him what to do and all, they had a little cigar box type thing over there, and said, "No, there's $300 in that box." And he said, "Well, what's that for?" He said, "You'll know when you need it." So, okay.
Okay.
So he's running, and all of a sudden, here's this raid by the police. They come in, and I won't mention names. I can tell you
Yeah.
the sheriff who was doing this, but they raid him. They handcuffed him and said, "We're going to take you to jail. This is an illegal operation." He said, "I don't know anything about this." He said, "Well, we can have court right here if you want to, and you can pay a fine." Well, he said, "What's the fine?"
Sounds like
They
a bribe.
They said $300. He said, "Oh, okay."
Okay.
He opens the box and hands him $300. They take the cuffs off of him and leave.
I can call that a bribe.
We had a lot of it going on in
Arr, that's
60s,
crazy.
70s.
That's crazy. That's
But
crazy.
projectionists or
We had the Lord of the Rings when it came out, and this really blows my mind because it doesn't seem like it was that long ago. But we took our kids to see Lord of the Rings at the theater here in town,
yeah.
and it was the very first one that came out. And honestly, I fell asleep in it. I get very bored in movies if they're not just really engaging. I
Me
can't.
too.
I can't. They're
I'm
too
that way.
long. It's got to be quick, or it loses my attention, and I'll go sleep. Well, I was dozing. I was not enjoying the movie at all. The film broke. And so we never got to see the end of it. And I don't know. And it was just a short time after that it changed completely. And, but I mean, we never saw the end of that. I'm sure my kids have seen it since then. But that is my last memory of film projection.
Did you ever do home movie film?
No, never did. I really wish my parents had gotten into that because I would love to have some film of us when we were little. We had a
did.
neighbor that did. We had a neighbor that did. And so I feel like there's probably some film out there of me when I was little because we were all hung out together, but I've never seen it. I've never seen any film of me as a child. I've seen pictures. I don't have a lot of pictures.
I got
of
them
me
when
as a
I was
little one.
4 and 5 years old.
Yeah. See, I don't have a ton of pictures of me because we grew, and that's probably the reason why I was so obsessive about taking so many of my kids. But we were farming. And when the second kid came along, we didn't have, at the time when I was little, they didn't have the finances for that kind of stuff. And so if you didn't have the money for it, my daddy sure wasn't going to waste money on stuff like that. And so we didn't have I've got pictures, but I don't have a lot. But I would love to have some old film.
I remember we had this light bar. So it was a bar and a handle on the bottom like a T-shape, and you mount the camera right on the center of the bar, and it had 2 lights on each side, big, strong lights, because you had to have a lot of light to make it work. So all our movies, people going squinting, because they couldn't see it was so bright.
So you've got film of you when you were 4.
Yeah.
Wow.
In the 40s.
That's cool.
My aunts and uncles and mother and daddy, everything all around the old cars, black cars. Back then there weren't colors.
Yeah.
They were black. Everything was black. And
that's cool.
They're very good. I just love to have them,
Oh, I'm sure.
And my brother, I
That's a
have him
treasure.
before he had his first haircut. He had long curls.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I got a movie of taking him to the barbershop the first time he got a haircut.
That's cool.
Oh, that was really neat.
That's really cool.
And I've got some movies of him and I walking down a sidewalk holding hands, and he had a little beanie on his head with a little propeller that went around.
Oh, that's funny.
And things like that. And of course, I had them digitally processed because they were getting worse over time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I had a lot of them put on digital, but I have a whole lot more that I haven't done that because it's going to be so expensive.
Yeah.
It's going to be several $100s.
They can actually colorize them too.
Yeah, I know it.
Now with AI and stuff, you could get those and have them,
I remember
digitized and colorized and enhanced, and you'd have you could really.
The first TV
really
I ever
cool.
saw, Speedy Head, who was a fireman over at Fort Campbell, but he ran the country club here. He was a golfer. He had the first TV, and I remember having a little piece of color Mylar, he laid over the screen to give it color.
Oh, how funny.
And that's the way we had color TV then. This was in the 50s.
See, this is all this stuff. I would love to get my hands on some of this stuff to show my kiddos because, I had one.
I imagine it's on Google,
What was so fascinating, I had one of my seniors. I have it's not a Victrola. We call them Victrolas because that was the first one, the hand crank, What is the technical name for that?
Record player.
It's a record player, but it's the ones that you crank with the crank. And my cousin gave me one that's been in his family, and then I've got one that actually it was donated to our church to be sold to raise money.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted it. And so I told them I actually have it at my classroom, and I said, well, if anybody ever wants to buy it, let me know, and we'll bring it down. But the kids, it's been sitting in the back of the room, and it was so funny. Last week, one of my seniors that has been in my classroom for the last couple of years, she said, what is that thing?
Yeah.
But she's never been in my audio video class. Yeah. And so we were showing it to her, and she was just fascinated. And I have a record player that it's a reproduction of an old record player. It's not an old one.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
And I've got it sitting in the corner, and somebody brought me in a stack of 45 records, and I put them back there. And the way the kids have been playing those records, they are just fascinated with it. But I love stuff like that I can let the kids mess around with it. And but that's really cool. I didn't know that they ever had a thing where you put something on the front of a TV to make it color. I'd never seen that.
You'd make it. I remember making it red.
It was Mylar to try to make it color.
It's like a Mylar. It's just a plastic sheet, and you'd take Scotch tape and tape it on.
That's
the front.
hysterical.
But I remember all of us running over to his house. He lived 2 streets over from us, and we'd all sit around, and it would be a round screen, and you were sitting there watching it. It was only on a few hours a day. It only had 3 channels, 2, 4, and 5, and then they would have these. When it went off at night, you'd have this picture of an Indian on there and some other things you use to get your picture straight on. And we used to, of course, I was at Henry and Bell, my dad owned, we used to sell TVs. And a woman contacted me and she said, I've got one of the first TVs you all ever sold. It's in my attic. So, and she was down in Cedar Hill, so I went and got it. And I had it for a while, and I thought, well, I looked in there, and of course, I'm technically, electronically know a lot of stuff about that. So I looked in there and the capacitors were swollen. I said, well, if I turn this thing on, they're going to go, you know. So I've got to replace those. I started looking at other things I had to replace before I even turned it on.
Yeah.
So then there was a guy named Elvis Beller, not Elvis, Beller, can't think of his first name. He lived up in Ridgetop. He had a museum up there, and it was just a building with a lot of old stuff in it, and he wanted it. And I said, okay, that'll do somebody good to see one of the first ones that came.
Yeah.
Well, the thing burned down, the building.
Oh, so you lost it. It's gone. Oh.
So anyway, I remember at the old store, I remember we had a.
What did it look like the first the first television you showed? Was it one of the ones that, was it a cabinet one or?
Yeah, it was just a big cabinet and a little round screen. And
okay. I've seen those.
One very, contrast wasn't really good.
Okay, but it was a real small screen in a cabinet.
Yeah.
Okay, kind of like the ones you'd see on television from that era.
Yeah,
I guess.
So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, because the one we had that I remember was a cabinet, but the screen was relatively large. It wasn't that real tiny screen like they had.
I remember we had a manager at our furniture store because my dad had another job while he owned the furniture, the Henry and Bell furniture, and he had a manager. And I remember I went in there one Saturday where the TVs were displayed, and he was standing there watching it, and he turned around and he said, Mickey Mouse just isn't what he used to be. And I thought, what? Cartoons came on Saturday afternoon. Plus, in the afternoons, we had the Big Show would come, Channel 4 or 5,
right?
Had the Big Show, and they'd have a movie, and everybody waited for the Big Show to come on and watch this old movie, and they would have shows like Howdy Doody and shows for kids and all on Saturday, but at night, I don't know what time, it probably turned off about 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
it'd go off there and come back on in the morning. Bob Lobertini was the first weatherman. I remember he had a sort of a board up there. He stuck stuff on, and that was a weather board, And of course, I remember in the weather service in the 60s when I was in, we didn't have computers, but you had to use mathematical formulas to figure everything of what is going on and what it's doing. And I remember there was an old colonel in my flight, and he was in World War II. And he told me, he said, it took so long for us in World War II to get a forecast up. By the time Normandy landing, the forecast took a while to come up. They didn't come with a forecast till after the landing.
Oh, wow.
And it was bad weather.
Sure.
He shouldn't have done it. But anyway, he had a lot of stories about World War II and the weather, and I should have listened to him more, and I didn't.
Well, it's like all of us would love to listen. That's one of the reasons why I'm so glad we're doing this, Bill. And again, if you're the only signal we're getting out pretty much is the social media that's on WSGI.
Yeah.
So we're limited on our audience today, but we appreciate you hanging out there with us. But I'm going to go ahead and do my commercials, but we're going to redo them tomorrow once we get all this working. But it's one thing that you mentioned about the quality that we had versus what we have today, though. And I had an experience as a day that I thought was very unique. I was babysitting my grandkids. And I was watching a show that I like the show NCIS. It's been around forever. And I will watch it at my house, and I don't have the latest and the greatest televisions. I have flat screens and all that, but I don't have the high definition. My son, that has the 3 children, does. So I was in the middle of watching an episode of NCIS the other day and got interrupted. And so I thought, well, I'm going to finish this episode. And I threw it up, you can cast it to their television.
Yep.
So I cast it to their TV, and it was so high def that it wasn't as good because I could see how bad the acting was. I'm not kidding. It was it made it look the staging
Yeah.
and the action, it was so clear and so sharp. It took away from my experience of watching the show. I hated it.
Yeah.
I was like, if this is high def, I don't want it.
By the way, there's a couple that live in Romsey County and we're NCIS, and they gave a program
See,
at
and
the
I know
Kiwanis Club
I've been trying to
last
get them
week.
in here.
There, you just wouldn't.
So you've had them in there in the Kiwanis Club.
Kiwanis Club.
See, I've tried to connect with them a couple of times, and I can't remember what it's been weird because I would reach out to them and they're like, yes, and we're not available this day, but then we would push it off and then I'd forget to follow back up with them. But
Yeah.
I've tried a couple of times
They'd
to
make
connect.
an
I need to
interesting
try
program.
again. I need to try again.
Husband
Maybe
and
this
wife,
summer.
they were
Yeah,
both the same thing.
that's really cool. That's fascinating.
Amazing. Some of the stories they tell.
Yeah.
You just think, oh no, that's on television. That didn't really
Yeah.
happen. Oh yes, it did.
Oh, that's crazy. That's interesting.
Anyway,
That's interesting. Yeah, see, and I want to have them on because
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that. But I'll tell you, I was not impressed with how, and I mean, it might be okay in some regards, but when it came to this particular television show, because I talked to my kids, the NTSC, I think I've got the acronym right. That's the one who sets the standards
Right.
for broadcast here in America. PAL is the one that does it European. And one of the reasons why we talk so much about it is a camera that was purchased for my program was European, and it will not work here.
Mhm.
Now I can use it to record stuff and take the SD card out, but I can't plug it into anything. I can't plug it into my monitors. I can't plug it in and it interface with anything.
I never
Because-
thought of that.
Yeah, it's a European camera. So we studied a lot about PAL versus NTSC. And so as we got to looking at it, we looked at the standards for NTSC in regards to movies, television, and sports. And so when you think about what is the NTSC standard for frames per minute in regards to TV, movies, and sports, and which one do you think would be the highest? Frames per second, which means quality. And it's not what you think. You think movies. You think, well, movies are the standard must be frames per second. It's not. It's 24. And then television's actually at a higher rate than movies.
I would have
The
thought the other way.
standard. Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. And it's 30, and then sports is 60. But now it's all over the place now. That's just the standard.
Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of movies that are shot at a higher frame rate because they want to do more with special effects. And so like Hobbit and Avatar and all those were shot super high frame rates because they want to do more special effects. But it changes your experience in what you're watching big time. And when it came to watching human people, it was just, the television show, I did not care for it in high definition at all because it just really emphasized the cheesiness of it. I mean, it really did. I was like, oh, these people can't act. And I like all these actors, but I was like, oh my goodness, you saw everything.
Yeah.
And it was just cheesy beyond belief. But whenever I was watching it in lower definition, it had kind of a, I don't know, it just seemed more realistic
Yeah.
because I couldn't see all the detail that just ruined it for me. I was like, ugh, I don't
That's
like
interesting.
this.
I'd never heard that.
Well,
before.
I've never had that experience, and I was sitting there watching it, and I was like, ugh. I have no desire to have any of these real high definition televisions now.
Well, I had
Yeah.
it, and then I took it off.
Yeah.
The 4K and all this stuff. I said,
Yeah. Yeah,
it is really. It's sort of
it's wild.
make you look what?
It's like,
you
what in the
know?
world am I looking at?
odd.
Hey, let me pause for a second.
Okay.
We're going to wrap it up, and we'll just have to do a do over with you. And we might even, before the end of the month, have another history day because this has been kind of a bust. Because it's been interesting. I want to have all these conversations again when I know we have a bigger audience because all this stuff is, to me, it's just fascinating to hear you talk about these different things. And I love that you kind of did the recap of the jobs. That are not out there because I want to go through that with my kiddos. I think that would be really interesting to say what jobs. I really want to do this as we're kind of finishing up our curriculum. This would be something that would be just kind of an extra thing we could do. I think they would find interesting. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. He did my homework for me. I love it. But let's talk first about Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty because Barry's going to be in here on Thursday with some of the guys from the Kilgore Station Bluegrass Festival. So you're going to get a chance to have Barry come in here and talk to you, in person about some of the things going on in real estate. Remember when the rates come down, the housing prices go up, If the rates are up, housing prices go down. That's what Barry always says. He says, when's the best time to buy? Anytime, because it's going to always fluctuate. High interest rates, low housing prices, low interest rates, high housing prices, and it just balances out. But Barry is the broker here in Springfield. Rebecca, of course, is the agent that's up in White House, and they brought those two together to bring you Exit Prime Realty. If you want experts in the real estate game, guys, you can find no better than Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty. Rebecca is just, she was just recently awarded a big award. She was the top 100 regionally with Exit, and that is such a big deal. Just number 6 in sales volume in the region, number 5 in the GCI in the region, number 2 in sales volume in Tennessee, and number 2 gross commission income in Tennessee. So, I mean, just excellent what they're doing with their real estate business, and they're just experts at what they do. She's one of the first in the area to be a seniors real estate specialist, and so that means that she's going to specialize in what you need to know if you're trying to downsize and you're, somebody that's older. She can help you out. But if you want to contact them, you can go to sellwithbecky.com, sellwithbecky.com, or by BUYRobertsonCounty.com, sellwithbecky.com, or by BUYRobertsonCounty.com. And if you want to give them a call, you can give Rebecca a call. This is her number, 615-504-7425, 615-504-7425, and let them know that you turned Cynthia. And we also usually talk about Bernard Farms today. And again, I'm going to hold that off until tomorrow, but I do want to mention that I did message Julie yesterday, and I always like to say, hey, what are you doing this week? And what I mean by that is, what are you slaughtering? They're cutting beef on Tuesday. And so they're processing beef on Tuesday and Wednesday, but they did pork last week. So that means that they've got buy one, get one free, 1-inch pork chops, 1-inch bone-in chops, and pork ribs while supplies last. So what they had, that they processed last week, they've got a discount on it. So buy one, get one free, chops and ribs while supplies last. And I'll just mention that for Bernard Farms, and then we'll do a complete spot for them tomorrow.
This is John Metter. You're listening to Middle Tennessee and Southern Kentucky's new home of great gospel music. 7 days a week, WSGI AM 1100, Springfield, God's Informer.
I mean, it really is. It's so pretty, but yeah, it's really cool. But now, how do you want to wrap this up today, Betty? We're pretty much out of time, and we'll just have to do a do-over on this one with as far as the prizes and all of that because of the signal issues today.
Next time we'll talk about photographers in Springfield.
Oh,
in the late 1800s.
Oh, cool.
And how they did in the early 1900s.
Oh, cool.
We'll talk about parks, the first parks in Springfield.
Oh, fun.
Where they were, how many there were. And we'll talk about why people didn't want to shake hands in the early days.
I love it.
So
I love it. I love it. That's what you call a teaser, y'all.
By the way, George Washington never would shake anybody's hand.
Would he not?
I'll tell you why next
time. Okay. All right, there you go, guys. And honestly, we're gonna have to revisit some of this stuff. I'm gonna see if I have an open slot later in the month, and we'll come in and kind of redo this show if you don't mind.
Sure.
I think it's worth it because we've had a very limited audience today because of signal issues and social media issues and all the issues that are going on. Maybe it's the rain. I'm not really sure. But I got to get to school because a week from today is the last day for high school students that are exempt from exams. So high school students, this is just high school.
We've got exempt. How do they do that?
By having an A or a B average
the grade.
And very few absences. If you have an A, you can have, I think, 3 absences. And if you have a B, if you have an A, you can have 3. And if you have a B, I think you can have 2. But it's something the school board did to give incentives. Attendance is a horrible, horrible problem. And I have one kid that's missed 30 days this year. And just a great kid, very academically brilliant, just doesn't see the need in being here. And I'm like, you got to show up.
Well, let me tell you something I went through when I was graduating college.
Yeah.
They had an exam that covered all 4 years.
Oh, wow.
If you didn't pass the exam, you didn't graduate.
So you had a comprehensive exam at the end of it. Wow. Over all 4 years. That's crazy.
I spent the last semester studying for that.
I imagine.
Not necessarily anything else. But.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like if you can show that you've got the grades and you're showing up for school, you can come next Monday, and that will be your last day of school for this year. And then you basically get you get an extra week almost. You get 4 more days.
Good deal.
Because then Tuesday and Wednesday next week. Tuesday will be our final exams for third and fourth block. And then Wednesday will be our final exams for first and second block. And then high school students with a note from their parents will be able to leave at the end of second block. Thursday next week will be all about makeup exams. And then Friday next week will be a half day where you can come get your report card and all that. And then we're done. So we're in the last 2 weeks of school, but really, in all practical purposes, we have about a week left, really, of real classes. So summer's coming, y'all. Summer's coming. So thank you, Bill. Thank you guys for joining us. And this is 1100 WSGI. God bless. Have a absolutely fabulous day.
Let me ask you a question and throw something out.